Today we're taking a look at 27 underrated RPG games and more on the Nintendo Switch. Being underrated can come from sales not quite being up there for the quality of the game, or even a title that reviewed lower than many thought it should have based on what the game offers. In this video, it's going to be really fun to go through a lot of these games, and you'll probably find titles that you'll really like if you give it a shot. Now with that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right into it. The first game that we'll be discussing is Damon X Machina. Now, one of the better mech action games on the Nintendo Switch went somewhat undiscovered because despite being published by Nintendo, the IP holders Marvelous would constantly content ID claim footage of the game on YouTube and refused to stop doing so until the very end or right before the game launched. Now I have more on that in a separate video, but things got kind of crazy with that. Now outside of the content ID issues, the game was really fun. I love the characters and the mech customization, and the title supports online and offline co-op for up to 4 players. It's a solid pickup for those looking for a robust mech action game with an interesting story. Next up is God Eater 3. Now this game often gets overlooked because it's not quite as good as Monster Hunter, but tries to provide that type of experience. But it doesn't mean that it's not worth playing. God Eater 3 has a ton of cool monsters to take down, customization options, decent enough looking graphics, and lots of variety when it comes to the weapons. The online multiplayer works well, and you can still find people playing this game years later. There is a demo up on the eShop, so you can go check it out for yourself if you want to slay some monster gods. Next up is Attack on Titan 2 Final Battle. When it comes to anime adaptation games, I feel enough people don't discuss the Attack on Titan games. These games did a fantastic job of recreating the atmosphere and feel of the anime in stunning fashion. The controls are fluid and good. There are plenty of upgrades and new abilities to unlock as well. The voice acting and graphics are on point too. Fans of the anime or action games should absolutely give Attack on Titan 2 Final Battle a try if you're looking for something a bit different with some epic boss battles to toe. Next up is Bravely Default 2. The Bravely series has always averaged in the 80s on Metacritic, so it was a bit surprising to see Bravely Default 2 get a 76 overall average, as it actually improved upon multiple aspects from the first and second game in the series. What's even more baffling is that its scoring is well below Bravely's second end layer despite that game's many issues. Either way, if you don't let the review scores fool you, this RPG is very good and worth playing, especially if you love old school Final Fantasy. The amount of jobs and skills available is vast, and core players looking for a challenge will find it right here with Bravely Default 2. Next up is Resident Evil Revelations. While this Resident Evil game might not get as much love as the major numbered RE games, I can argue it's just as good as some of them, although in a different way. The multi-character plot is handled much better than Resident Evil 6, the controls are better than the original Resident Evil 4, and the online co-op missions / upgrading system has more depth than RE5's mercenary mode. Resident Evil Revelations is far better than RE fans give it credit for. Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition. While Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity gets most of the attention considering it's a direct tie to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, the best-selling Zelda game of all time, Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition is no slouch on Nintendo Switch. One of the main complaints I had with Age of Calamity is the frame rate. Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition runs at a silky smooth 60 frames per second on the Nintendo Switch, a clear upgrade over the Wii U version as well. It also includes all the DLC and content. Age of Calamity might have the better sales and publicity, but Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition deserves a lot of praise for what it offers Nintendo Switch players. River City Girls. River City Ransom was one of my favorite games on the NES back in the day, so it's really cool to see that the River City name is still going strong 30 years plus later. Games like TMNT Shredder's Revenge and Streets of Rage 4 get a lot of new age spotlight in the retro beat 'em up genre, but don't sleep on the original River City Girls game. The graphics are beautiful, the gameplay is sleek and responsive, plus the upgrading system was a welcome surprise. Next up, Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin. While the mainline Monster Hunter games usually get all the praise and awards, especially with Rise on the Nintendo Switch, core RPG and even Pokemon fans might want to check out Monster Hunter Stories 2 Wings of Ruin. This features a cool hybrid Pokemon style gameplay loop, impressive graphics on the RE engine built specifically for the Nintendo Switch, and a full online competitive and cooperative multiplayer. Monster Hunter's side game is anything but that anymore, especially with how good this game turned out. No More Heroes 2 Desperate Struggle. While the original No More Heroes and No More Heroes 3 have received the most love or hate from fans, No More Heroes 2 is arguably the best game in the series. It features really cool 8-bit mini games that still hold up today. No clunky open world like the first and third games either. Multiple different beam katanas you can collect and upgrade, and the most replay value in the franchise's history. Top it off with it running at 60 frames per second on the Nintendo Switch. This is a sequel that is highly underrated and you need to play now. Atelier Sophie 2 The Alchemist and the Mysterious Dream. Sometimes Atelier games get a bad rap because the overall art style, but don't let that fool you with the Atelier Sophie 2 game. Atelier Sophie 2. This game rules. The combat is easily the best in the series, and the amount of gameplay options is vast but also far easier to use than any other Atelier game. Mix in with that fantastic music, locations, and UI, Atelier Sophie 2 is the best game in the Atelier series outside of the famed Ryza games. Next up, Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE Encore. This game was ill-fated from the beginning. The fans wanted Shin Megami Tensei crossed with Fire Emblem. What we ended up getting was a new Mega 10 combat styled IP with some Fire Emblem influences. Once you get past that, which a lot of people didn't considering the abysmal sales, Tokyo Mirage Sessions Sharp FE Encore is actually pretty good. The combat, music, graphics, and upgrades all work extremely well, and there was no major tech issues running solid on the Nintendo Switch. It's a lot to get past not having Shin Megami Tensei characters, especially when they advertised it so heavily at the beginning, but if you can get past that, you'll be treated with a solid RPG that's a ton of fun to play. Persona 5 Strikers. Turn-based RPGs are all the Persona brand is known for outside of the occasional dance routine, but don't take the action RPG Persona lightly, because it's really good. And that's exactly what Persona 5 Strikers does well. Takes the base of Persona 5 and turns it into an amazing action RPG that's definitely overlooked and underrated compared to the turn-based Persona games. Next up, Ninokuni 2 Revenant Kingdom Prince's Edition. Whenever people mention the best Ninokuni game, Ninokuni Wrath of the White Witch is usually mentioned, and rightfully so. However, Ninokuni 2 Revenant Kingdom is much better than people give it credit for, despite the big combat changes over the first game. The town building aspect is fun, and the combat system has a ton of variety. It's also really fluid as a true action RPG. Ninokuni Wrath of the White Witch deserves all the praise it gets, but don't forget about the little follow-up that does a number of amazing things, especially with the story in the game. Next up, Wargroove. Since it seems we will be waiting forever for the next Advance Wars on Nintendo Switch, we all might as well check out Wargroove in the meantime. That is a cool hybrid between Advance Wars and Fire Emblem. It's got a cute art style but fierce gameplay. I love the variety in combat units, and the story isn't half bad either. When it comes to indie games, a lot of gamers forget about how good Wargroove is. We won't be doing that here on PlayerEssence. Next up, Azure Striker Gunvolt 3. Yes, we all want a new Mega Man game, but while we wait, the Azure Striker Gunvolt series has quietly been the spiritual successor to the Blue Bomber. Azure Striker Gunvolt 3 builds upon all the crazy gameplay of the first two mainline games and takes it up another level. The music is incredible, I love the little upgrades and boss battles. The Azure Striker Gunvolt franchise might not have the clout Mega Man has, but lately, it's been far better. Disgaea 1 Remake. When it comes to strategy RPGs, Fire Emblem is pretty much the cream of the crop, but the Disgaea games are hidden gems with deep customization, plenty of laughs, and some awesome SRPG combat. There are a few things I think that holds it back, but I feel not enough people discuss how good the first game is in the franchise, especially with the remake on Nintendo Switch. If you want an old school strategy RPG that has just enough great gameplay ideas to make it feel modern, check out Disgaea. Next up, Trials of Mana. While there have been some bad to average Mana games out there, this franchise was known for its quality back in the 90s, which is why it's very important if you enjoy old school action RPGs to check out Trials of Mana. Yes, it doesn't have the crazy high Metacritic score, and it doesn't get anywhere near the publicity other Square Enix RPGs get, like Kingdom Hearts, Dragon Quest, or Final Fantasy. But it's got a lot of heart and is a complete Unreal Engine 4 remake of the original third game in the Mana franchise. For its time, it was super innovative, offering multiple playable characters with their own campaigns and plot lines. If you enjoy slick action RPG combat with a fun battle system, try out Trials of Mana. Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition. Still to this day, Tales of Vesperia is one of my favorite Tales games ever made, and I've played a lot of Tales of games. The combat is classic Tales of, but I think the developers did a great job of adding so many little wrinkles to the classic formula. The story and additional characters added in from the PS3 release really helped flesh things out, and graphically it still looks beautiful despite being an early to mid Xbox 360 release. Next up, Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana. The Ys series has some respect out there, but oftentimes this game is overlooked. Ys 8 is one of those titles that doesn't get mentioned with the best action RPGs out there, but it really should. Smooth gameplay, multiple playable characters, great mini games, and fleshed out combat that will keep you playing the game for many hours on end. Despite it not getting the same love of other quality RPGs out there, you should try out Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana if you haven't already done so. It's fantastic. Valkyrie Chronicles. The original Valkyrie Chronicles is one of the best strategy RPGs ever made. It's a shame not enough people have played it to understand just how good it is. The hybrid mix of action and turn-based combat has aged like fine wine. The characters are fun to recruit, level up, and equip better weapons. The story, voice acting, and beautiful water paint visuals are so good. I'm honestly baffled why this game didn't take off on the PlayStation 3. I really don't have anything bad to say about the original Valkyrie Chronicles. Just go play it. Next up, Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD Remaster. Okay guys, I get it. Fans had a right to bash Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne HD Remaster a bit. It was a PlayStation 2 game not running at 60 frames per second and had frame rate issues on all platforms. But to be fair to Atlus, the source code for the game was probably written on a floppy disk and paper, and Atlus wasn't necessarily known for their retro remastering prowess or anything. Even with all of that, the game is still a certified classic banger. Shin Megami Tensei 4 and Shin Megami Tensei 5 get a lot of love from fans, and rightfully so. But Shin Megami Tensei 3 set the table for the success the latest mainline SMT games are having. Next up, Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. This game is fantastic. I repeat, this game is fantastic. And check this out, it does many things better than Fire Emblem 3 Houses when it comes to the mechanics. Yes, it won't sell 4 million copies like Fire Emblem 3 Houses, or anywhere near that to be honest, and it won't be beloved like that game either, but the gameplay is straight up addictive. It's got one of the most satisfying Warriors combat loops out there, and in some respects it feels like a sequel to Fire Emblem 3 Houses because it evolves and makes better many of the gameplay ideas from that game. Yeah, there's some repetition with the combat, but you'll be so occupied with the various improved mechanics and fun, you won't really notice it too much. Mario plus Rabbids Sparks of Hope. This game reviewed great, is selling well from what we can see, and is well liked among gamers on the Nintendo Switch. But let's be real, it probably won't win any awards and will be buried under many other games simply because Rabbids with Mario. And something not more popular, honestly, this is one of the best strategy RPGs I've ever played. The sparks add a nice jolt to gameplay, and the level design is really good. Combat feels crunchier and more satisfying than the first game, and I love the new weapon additions that add a lot of personality to each character. The game is a massive upgrade over the original. I just wish the mainstream media covered it that way. Xenoblade Chronicles 2 Torna the Golden Country. Now this is a DLC expansion, but it solved a lot of the issues with the base game of Xenoblade Chronicles 2 when it came to the RNG blades and some of the frame rate issues at times. After I played the game, I was floored by the music, combat, new ideas, and overall value it added for $30, which is why it shocked me when it only scored an 80 on Metacritic with just 41 reviews. That's the lowest rated Xenoblade game of all time. While the game was a hit with fans, I can't help but think it was overlooked just a bit. The story is absolutely tragic, but it's also incredible at the same time. Next up, 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. Super anime visual novel RTS game thingy. Yeah, 13 Sentinels is a lot of things, and despite being rated well, I think a lot of gamers slept on how good this game is. Yes, it's on its way to 1 million units sold, but for the quality of the game, it could easily be doing way better. If you love cool hand-drawn aesthetics and a great story with some cool strategy management gameplay, don't miss out on 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. Next up, The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero. The more I play The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero, the more I'm going to continue discussing how awesome this game is. While I don't expect the Legend of Heroes games to sell millions of copies, Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero absolutely deserves to. The game is that good. And for a smaller RPG release, it does things better than a lot of major big budget RPGs. Do yourself a favor and pick up The Legend of Heroes Trails from Zero. Last up, Astral Chain. And yes, I've talked about this game a million times, and it pretty much makes any list that I can put it on, but it's honestly that good. Yes, it's underrated at its 86/87 on Metacritic. The game, along with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, are the best action RPGs on the Nintendo Switch. But compared to Xenoblade Chronicles, Astral Chain absolutely deserves to be on more Nintendo Switch gamers' systems. And while selling over 1 million units is good for a new IP developed by Platinum Games, this game honestly deserves way more than that. Add to that the complete disrespect at the Game Awards only being nominated once for Action Game of the Year and of course not winning it in 2019, something is definitely wrong here. The game is easily one of the best looking games on the Nintendo Switch, has a slick combat system, tons of content with no DLC as everything is built into the standard game. And while the story isn't the best, the incredible action and set pieces more than make up for it. Buy Astral Chain, like right now. Go ahead, go buy it. If you haven't done it yet, go pick it up. It's incredible. What do you guys think about my 27 underrated Nintendo Switch RPGs and more? Are there any titles that you feel that are underrated that you want me to cover on the channel? Let me know in the comment section below. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.